So this morning, I'm going to talk about the idea of Christ consciousness. Now, Christ consciousness is essentially the idea, or another term for enlightenment. It's that state of finding the universal truth in the same way that Jesus did. And the very essence of light and love, the Christ consciousness, is compassion. And we talk a lot about love and kindness and compassion here because that's what makes the world go round. That's what makes life worth living, is being in service through that love, that kindness, that compassion. And compassion in particular is that willingness to believe that you have a place in the universe simply because of who you are. And that is the truth for everybody else. True compassion is a state of great personal power. It's an honest appreciation and respect for yourself and all others without judgment. And the truth is, there is far more strength in compassion than there is in judgment. And I know we all know that. In that state of compassion, we're able to recognize that others are loved no matter what their faults may appear to be. And they can also be loved and not envied no matter what their strength. And Jesus taught that. Compassion is about honoring that light within you and that light within everybody else as well. And from a place of pure, unconditional love. It's about recognizing that divine spark that we talk about within each and all. And loving the truth of ourselves, no matter what it may look like to us or to someone else. Shahan Yon from Receiving the Cosmic Christ tells us this: the most crucial step toward developing a true self-love is a relentless dedication to your own truth. When we are willing to see what we consider the worst and the best in ourselves with exactly the same spirit, we will know we are experiencing self-love. He explains further that we will never truly become great because we can only become aware of our greatness that is already within us. Your own Christ consciousness. And we can learn to express that love and that light in our walk in the world each and every day. That way we share it with everyone we come into contact with. Because that greatness is an inherent quality. It's the quality that we all possess, the quality of our own God essence. So our work is to clear away all that we ought to be, so we can finally see and be present with who we already are. All of our learning, all of our growth comes from recognizing more clearly what is already within us and bringing that out and sharing it in the world. Jesus taught that as we cultivate our insight into all aspects of ourselves, we then can and will, with courage, discover that it is all God, that it is all one. In the gospel, the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas, Jesus taught empowerment. And so this gospel, in case you aren't familiar with it, this gospel is said to be at least as old as, probably older than, the 4 traditional gospels in the current Bible. And the theological scholars believe actually it's older because of the way it's written. It's in a very basic, simpler context than the other 4. It is written as a list instead of a story, which they have decided that is probably written down by scribes via an oral tradition. And in this gospel, there are over 100 sayings of Jesus that's listed. It's interesting to note this. In this gospel, there are no miracles. There are no personal stories of Jesus. There's no sin. There's no condemnation. There's no crucifixion. There's no resurrection. In the entire text, that's true. This gospel instead focuses on Jesus' teachings on the subject of being one with God. And I find that really beautiful. It's about experiencing that personal relationship with God without the need for organized religion. In this gospel, Jesus was to have said, "The seeker should not stop until he finds. When he does find, he will be disturbed. After having been disturbed, he will be astonished. And then he will reign over everything." Just knowing who we are, making that connection, that oneness. What he's telling us here is that becoming a fully awakened human being is an absolute possibility. Reaching that point of enlightenment, awakening to our own divinity, our own Christ consciousness. Not without struggles of our humanness, because that's part of the program while we're here on this planet. What I really appreciated about that was he said the seeker should not stop until he finds. So in other words, we are not called to endlessly seek. We are called to find the truth and the power of our own human divinity, of being in charge of our own lives, of being an active participant in how our life shows up. Now, Jesus is an incredible role model for us. If we come to know ourselves as he did, we too can transform from ordinary to extraordinary. How does that sound? Pretty awesome, right? His purpose was not to find a new religion, centering devotion upon him. In the Gospel of Philip, which is a companion to the Gospel of Thomas, he urges us to become new Christ, to live from that Christ consciousness, that higher level of being, of thinking, and to share that consciousness with the world, to be that light. And as we discover our own divinity, a huge transforming power is born within us. Our own resurrection, our own rebirth, an awakening to that light. And Jesus said that we too can become like him. We can become a light to the world. We can become an opener of doors. He showed us how to unlock our true self, how to awaken to that light within us, hidden in the heart of all of mankind. As we recognized our pattern thinking, our habits, we can break away from that autopilot mode so we can become that light in the world. So we can become an opener of doors, unlocking our true self, awakening to that divinity within us. Simply stated, this is Jesus' message. Love God intensely. Love our neighbor as our own self. Bless those who curse us and pray for those who mistreat us. Love, kindness, compassion. Love, bottom line, is the basic message of Jesus' teachings. Jesus was working to birth a fully divine human race. A race of beings as radically alive and as aware as himself. We have that opportunity each and every day, each and every moment, to rebirth ourselves to this new way of thinking.
So normally, we do not connect the concept of rebirth to this time of year as we enter into the plethora of the spiritual and religious festivals that we celebrate. Most often, we reserve this idea for the spring, and particularly with Easter. Yet history has provided us with evidence as far back as we're able to record human evolution and growth that this time of year is exactly about the celebration of rebirth. The holiday season for most of us begins sometime in November, with Thanksgiving, which progresses into either Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, and a host of other celebrations, leading us, of course, to the culmination of the concept of the rebirth on New Year's Day. And as we turn our gaze to the distant past, I find it really interesting that across the globe, from the ancient Mayans and Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Sumerians, and the Romans, that celebrations of one form or another have always centered around what today is referred to as the winter solstice. Now, in Egypt, during the winter solstice, the Egyptians celebrated the virgin birth of Horus. In Persia, it was the virgin birth of Mithras. And for the Druids, it was the virgin birth of the spiritual sun at Alban Athen. More than 300 years after the death of Jesus, it was a celebration in recognition of the virgin birth of Christ. Every one of these celebrations is marked by the use of lights and candles to remind us that spirituality is found not in the dark, but rather within the light. The winter solstice marks the longest night of the year. As the year progresses, the nights get shorter. As the days become longer, until we reach the summer solstice when the cycle reverses and the nights now become longer and the days shorter. During the longer nights, we move into a form of spiritual hibernation. This cycle represents itself annually and gives rise to the idea of a spiritual birth every single year. Susan Cassam, in her book Rise Up and Salute the Sun, writes, "Everything turns in circles and spirals with the cosmic heat until infinity. Everything has a vibration that spirals inward and outward, and everything turns together in the same direction at the same time. This vibration keeps going. It becomes born and expands, or closes and destructs, only to repeat the cycle again in opposite current. Like a lotus, it opens or closes, dies, and is born again. Such is also the story of the sun and moon, of me and you. Nothing truly dies. All energy simply transforms." Now, rebirth can be thought of on many different levels, both spiritual and emotional. For many families, it is only during the holidays that the family may come together, due either to the vast differences we may live from one another or our daily lives. We save and plan to spend this time together. In this way, the family itself is reborn every year. It's not that the family ever went away, nor that somehow transformed into something different, yet the bonds of family can be renewed, love deepened, and a reconnection formed that provides us the strength to move into the world again. The winter solstice speaks to us of a mysterious and universal understanding of spiritual transformation. All things which come into being must first be born. Even as creation was born by the great mother of the universe, we must be born of the Spirit to become spirit. The winter solstice is a celebration of being born again, not of flesh, but of spirit. It is a celebration of birth of the spiritual sun, S-O-N, within a person's consciousness on the path of the spiritual sun, S-U-N. Symbolizes a child just as the winter sun is at its weakest. It will grow until reaching its full strength at the summer solstice, just as the spirit grows within a prepared individual to transform them completely from inner darkness into light. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Each night when I go to sleep, I die. And the next morning when I wake up, I am reborn." You are not the same person today you were yesterday. Your experiences, thoughts, and deeds have forever transformed you into a new version of who you were. Every day you are born again to go out into the world and experience new ideas, share new thoughts, and witness miracles daily. We have the ability to completely transform who we were into who we want to be with every sunrise, and to start over in new directions as we review our past for areas we might rather have done differently. This is our divine gift, the ability to change, to grow, and to become a different version of ourselves. Now, as a small child, I was absolutely convinced that if I could not see it, if you were not within my perception of either sight or hearing, then you no longer existed. I imagined myself as the author of life. When I slept, nothing happened, for in my mind, nothing existed outside of my senses. Every day was new. And as with any good television show, there was a standard storyline which would play out, yet the daily plot was always unknown. Now, as an adult, I've lost a little bit of that innocence. Logic tells me that we each have our own stories and plots to play out, and that each day we are given a chance to expand our stories. Always changing, but never the same. On a physical level, it's been proven that our bodies continuously regenerate, and the cells we once had are no more. We are conscious of the concept of rebirth this time of year, even if we don't know we are. The winter solstice helps remind us of this. Our task, however, is to remember the concept throughout the year, to embrace our oneness with the Christ within. Our daily journey from dark to light is a constant reminder of the miracle of life, the circle that has no beginning and no end. We are the mythical phoenix, growing, expanding, and through fire, purged of old and outdated thoughts, to be reborn stronger, wiser, and more connected to the world around us. Regardless of what tradition you celebrate this year, take a few minutes to acknowledge the winter solstice as the mother of most traditions being celebrated. Open your eyes to the miracles that are present every day and embrace your daily rebirth. And I truly hope your holidays are filled with joy, love, abundance, and that you experience the true meaning of the season and you share that experience with others. Thank you.